Hi, today I'm chatting with Kenjai of Kustom Klaws in Bedford. Now, Kustom Klaws is not your normal walk-in nail bar. They're a multi-award winning nail art specialists. They are passionate about the quality of their products and they do, I think, the best gel mani in town. And yes, I'm biased because that's where I go. And bookings at their salon are by appointment only. Just don't make the mistake that I did and ask initially for an SNS because they do not do it with good reason. Now, whilst many small businesses have been able to reopen to some extent in phase 2, there are still far too many, like nail salons, beauticians, and pretty much anybody operating in the personal care industry that are having to wait until phase 3 to begin trading again. And the majority of these businesses are run by and predominantly employ women. Indeed, the level of economic impact that COVID-19 has had on women now has its own term, she-cession. There you go. Welcome, Kenjai.
Hi.
Kenjai, lovely to have you. Now, before we get into all the COVID-19 stuff, tell us a little bit about you. How did you find your path to becoming a multi-award winning nail artist? Because you've got a fascinating background.
Yeah. Look, I guess like my interest in nails started because no one ever did them right. I would go to salons all the time, different salons, walk-in nail bars, and I'd always come out with botched up crooked nails that were uneven or they weren't pointy enough, or and I would go home and file off the color and fix them up again. And then I kind of started buying little bits and pieces to do my nails, like decorate them at home. So I go get my acrylics done and then go home and do the nail art myself, because I was like, I could do a better job than this. Why am I paying people to do something that I'm going to redo? And then it just kind of developed from there. And I had a career in the public service. I was, worked for states and federal governments for most of my adult life. And I just wasn't really fulfilling my soul, to be honest. And then I just thought one day, you know what? I think I want to open up a nail salon. And then I'm the sort of person that once I make a decision that I'm going to do something, no matter how big or how small, I'm like a steam train. And then it just evolved from there. I enrolled in beauty school. I was studying nights while still working in state government to try to, learn how to do nails properly. And it's just evolved from there. And then here we are on a little pink shop on Beaufort Street.
So was Kustom Klaws your first salon?
Yeah. So I'd never worked in the beauty industry before. And it was so funny because when I used to meet, bit of a colourful character, and when I used to meet people before and I say, oh yeah, like I work in state government, they'd be like, no you don't, you're a hairdresser or something like that. And people would never believe me. But yeah, no, I had never worked in the beauty industry before, so it was a massive change for me, because I was going into, even though it was a craft I was passionate about and perfecting my skills, I had to learn how to navigate through an industry that I'd never really been involved with before. So it was a big change, and there was a lot of planning and thinking. I talked to friends of mine who own salons, and I did a lot of groundwork and research before we went to opening doors to kind of try to best arm myself with as much knowledge as I could before we stepped into it. Yeah.
The name Kustom Klaws, how did you come up with it?
I guess I used to be quite heavily involved with sort of like the pin-up and rockabilly circuit, and that name's kind of like, the term custom, especially using a K, is quite synonymous with that sort of subculture. And I just wanted something different. And I remember going to a business course when I first wanted to start my own business, and the guy instructing it said, when you're naming your business, name it with exactly what you're doing. And then I was like, yeah, like what we do is custom work. And, I didn't want nails. I was like, every nail bar's got nails in it. So let's change it up a little bit, make it a little funky. And basically custom nails, that's exactly what we do, and we just changed it up to Kustom Klaws to make it a little bit more funky.
Yeah. And I guess that's the KK, isn't it? And their claws.
Yeah.
Go on, show us your nails. Are they in showable condition?
They are. Look, don't ask me about my legs though. My legs aren't showable condition, but my nails are good.
Now, Kenjai, the majority of, and it was interesting hearing you saying, like, you talk to a lot of other nail salon operators, because you do operate very differently to the vast majority of nail salons. Was that a considered decision? Because you don't do walk-ins, do you?
No, we don't. And mainly because we don't have the capacity generally. Like, I've had 1 or 2 instances where somebody's walked in and I've, it just happened to have had a spot free. Yeah, sure, no problem. But that's like 1 in a million. But it just, because we just got so booked out and so popular that we just don't have the capacity for walk-ins. Like, if you want the appointment, like, you just have to book ahead of time, because we're generally booked up every day, 1, 2, 3 weeks in advance, which just doesn't leave capacity for walk-in.
Yeah. And I'm assuming, that some services are going to take longer than others. So, if you want, all the nail art, like what you've got at the moment versus, like a more standard gel mani that boring me might have, those things are going to take longer.
Yeah, definitely. And that's it. Like, sometimes ladies walk in and they're like, I want a full set of acrylics with all of this nail art. And I'm like, could be a 2.5 hour appointment, and I've got 20 minutes to my next client. So yeah, sometimes, especially for those big appointments, like, have to definitely book in advance. So, like, generally our appointments are anywhere between 30 minutes to 2.5 hours, depending on what you get.
So tell me a little bit about the philosophy of Kustom Klaws and how you work, because it's not a salon that you walk into and, your fingers are wrapped in, acetate, and all of that kind of stuff. How did you guys come to decide how you're going to work?
I guess, like, the main principle that I always fall back on is, what would I want as a customer? And I never do anything or use a product or use a technique on a client that I wouldn't want myself, that I wouldn't want to pay for. And I think as long as you go back to that basic principle of what would you want as a paying client, if you're paying good money and you're having this service, like, what is the outcome that you would want? And I think if you can revert back to that principle, you can't go wrong. And that's what we basically stick by. Like, a lot of the methods that we use have just been through trial and error of me using different products from when I started, going, oh, okay, that one doesn't work so well, let's try a different product, or let's try a different brand. And then, we've kind of settled, all right, this works, this doesn't work. And just always try to give the best for our client. And I think as long as you stand by those principles, you'll do okay.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Now, Kenjai, kind of turning towards what's happening at the moment and the strange circumstances that we're finding ourselves in, how many weeks has it been since you closed the salon?
Oh, I've lost count of weeks now. So we closed on the 26th of March. So a couple of months now. Lost track of how many. I've just lost track of time in general. It's like I'm suspended in this weird black hole at the moment. But we only got 24 hours notice from the government to close. So it all happened very quickly. So Tuesday, on the Tuesday, I remember it was a Tuesday, we got the notice that Scott Morrison said salons across the country closed, and it had to be by the next evening. So it was a hectic 24 hours.
Yeah. Well, I know, because I had my appointment booked for the Thursday, and I'm messaging going, Otherwise, I was thinking that I was going to have, everything growing out for forever. Yeah. So no opportunity really to prepare for the shutdown. Did you have an inkling that it was going to happen? Did you suspect it was going to end up that way?
I had a gut feeling, but I kind of thought maybe towards the end of the week or the following week. But I don't know if you remember in that time in March, everything was changing day by day, sometimes hour by hour. It was just changing so rapidly. And I kind of had an inkling that we could be closing by the end of the week, that I could see the way that other businesses, like at that stage, restaurants and cafes were starting to close down. I think they were on takeaway service only. So I was like, if they're closing restaurants, like, we could be next. And then we were sort of in that final everything shut sort of phase. I did have a sort of gut feeling that that's where it was going, but I certainly didn't expect it to roll out like literally 24 hours notice and we were shut.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. So if you're kind of happy to share some of it, what have the past months been like?
It's been really challenging. So you know, we've had to navigate things like we've been completely shut down. So we've had zero income. We're not been allowed to trade at all. We had to really think quick and like, well, what else can we do? Because we have a property, we're still paying rent on our property, we still have insurances and all these incoming bills that we have to pay on the business. And our personal household is now down an income because I've lost all business. So we had to think quick. We got an online store up and running, started looking at what products have we got in the salon, what can we package up for our clients to use at home to help them through this period. So we started packaging up home removal kits so ladies could get their nails off, their gel polish off, little spa mani kits, spa pedi kits. So basically just like packaging and bottling, and the salon turned into like a little bit of a factory for a while. And yeah, like that certainly hasn't even put a dent in recovering what income we've lost, but it's kind of kept us active and, you know, just trying to think outside the box of, all right, we can't open the salon, but what can we do? And that's basically been us for the last couple of months, just trying to really get our online products out there and give the ladies so they can still have their treatments at home.
Yeah, you were saying before we started the Zoom that some of that online activity is dropping off now that it's looking like you're going to be able to start trading again. When are you hoping to be reopened?
So no date has been announced yet for phase 3, but what they've indicated is 4 weeks from the start of phase 2, which would make it around the 15th of June. So we've started taking online bookings from the 15th of June, but we've asked all our clients to make sure that they remain flexible because that could change. Some people are feeling like it might be earlier, like, you know, Mark McGowan's indicated that it might be, you know, might be a little bit earlier, which would maybe make it Monday the 8th, the week earlier. But at this stage, we're hoping that apparently this weekend he's going to make an announcement of what date phase 3 will be. But I suspect it'll be somewhere mid-June. Yeah,
I kind of can't. I mean, at least, you know, as I was saying before the Zoom, I've had the ability to, you know, we've things were impacted, but we continue to be able to trade to some extent. Whereas for you guys, you know, it's that hit to your family income, you know, it's that hit to your baby, which is your business. It's that uncertainty of not when, you know, when things are not reopening again. What are you comfy to share, like, you know, your feelings around that? And
yeah. I mean, it was so unknown because we shut down so quickly. And the news that was sort of coming out of the media and what was coming out from the announcements was to basically prepare for a 6-month closure. So I'm the sort of person that anyway, I like to prepare myself for the worst, but we still hope for the best. So I was like, okay, so if they're saying we might be closed for 6 months, what's that going to look like for us? And I'm a very practical person. So I was like, all right, let's look at our finances. Let's look at where we're at. And this was before any of the JobKeeper or anything sort of came out. We were like, if we're just on our own for the next 6 months, where are we with our business and with our home?
Yeah.
And just make sure that we're all going to be okay. So I was like, look, it's not great. It's not ideal, but we will be okay. You know, we were quite fortunate that the business was in a position that we could, you know, we would be able to reopen after 6 months. And then, yeah, thankfully, like our landlord's been great with negotiating some reductions with our rent. We're able to get the JobKeeper, which has really helped us with, you know, getting us back in the salon and giving us that time to get the online stuff going. But yeah, mostly like I've actually been really surprised at how good my spirits have been, because I feel like it could be a really bad time right now. But look, it is what it is, and nothing we can do about it. All we can do is just make the best of it and try to navigate through. It's not ideal. You know, we had our shop's first birthday during shutdown. We were planning like a big celebration, and, you know, it's not a great end to what was an amazing first year in business. But look, it is what it is. We can't do anything about it. All we can do is just try to rebuild and move forward, and just focus on the positives and try to navigate through this new terrain, because it's going to be different when we open. Business is going to be different, and just work our way through it.
Yeah. And I think, you know, you've hit the nail on the head, Kenjai. It's accepting the circumstances, you know, accepting what you can't control, but focusing on what you can.
That's it. Yeah. And that's it. That's all we've tried to do, really. It's all we can do. Like, sit there and cry all day if I wanted to, but it's like, it's not going to get us anywhere. So,
yeah. Yeah. And we're not 6 months, which is fortunate. Yeah.
That's it. And that's brilliant. Like, I was really happy when I heard that we were opening in June. I'm like, okay, you know, to open in phase 2 would have been great. But open in phase 3, fantastic. At least it's not 6 months. Like, that's great. Like, I know a lot of, I heard a lot of moan and grumble from a few salon owners, like, you know, and I was like, what are you talking about? This is great. Like, at least we know that's light at the end of the tunnel. We are going to open soon, not 6 months. Fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I want to kind of sort of look at the situation from an angle on women. You being obviously a very cool boss lady. So the statistics tell us that women have been significantly harder hit economically by COVID-19 than men, which has prompted these terms like she-cession and the pink collar recession. So whilst women comprise 47.4% of the Australian workforce, they only make up 37.7% of full-time employees, and the balance of that is part-time and casual. So they're significantly overrepresented in the part-time and the casual workforce, and they're obviously two areas that have been significantly more vulnerable and hit by COVID-19. Obviously casual people have lost jobs. Not everyone's necessarily, eligible to get JobKeeper. A lot of part-time employees might still have part-time work, but they've had their hours reduced, so there's been a hit there. And women are also overrepresented in the industries that have been hardest hit with closures and job losses, and stand downs. So food, accommodation services, retail, personal care like you, and arts, obviously, name a few. Now, if you throw in single parenting, because the predominant amount of single parenting has been done still by women, and the requirement to perform more unpaid duties at home, such as, supervising kids when they were homeschooling, or shopping for at-risk elderly parents because you didn't want them going out to shopping centres, you really start to get a picture of how the pandemic has increased the burdens and stress on women, and in many cases really pushed their position backwards. So Kenjai, as a woman who runs her own business and employs other women, do you have that sense that COVID-19 has been harder for women than men?
Yeah, well, like, definitely. When you look at some of those industries and businesses that have been pushed back to stage 3, it is a lot of it. Like, I mean, you just look at the beauty industry alone, like predominantly, I don't know the exact statistic for WA, but I would say somewhere in the 90-something% owned by women, operated by women, employs women. So that's a huge amount of the female workforce that is still out for the count at the moment. How and why it's played out that way, I struggle to make sense of how some decisions have been made between the phase 2 and phase 3. I mean, not to kind of throw our friends in the hospitality industry under the bus, but when you look at when we initially started closing down, cafes and restaurants were closed down well before we were. So in my mind, that means they were sort of deemed a more risky sort of business, that they were, all right, cafes and restaurants were closed first, beauty salons and so forth weren't closed till the very last minute, yet they've been allowed to open before us. Like, that doesn't make sense in my mind. So, so there's a few things I'm not sure whether, obviously, like our government is predominantly men, whether they're just not seeing the value in these other businesses, or, I don't know what's going on, whether they just don't think women's services are important, or they're just not thinking about it. I'm not sure what's going on in the decision making. So it's a bit disappointing. No,
I understand. It's been interesting. I hadn't even actually thought about that aspect, the fact that the hospitality was subject to restrictions first, and yet they get to come back before, because, the government has all along the way said, well, things would be rolled back in the same way that they were rolled in. But you're right, for the beauty industry, that hasn't been the case. And in some respects, you'd like to think that you would have more control over the health practices doing what you do. Have there been any guidelines that have come out yet for the potential reopening? Are you expecting some?
So at this stage, the only things that have been released were the sort of COVID safety plans that were released as part of phase 2. So we've not completed ours yet because I wanted to wait and see whether a different set was released with phase 3. I didn't want to waste the time doing the work if ours were going to be different. And when they do release the details about phase 3, whether they release some industry specific safety plans. So when that comes, I'm not sure if they will or not, or whether it'll just be the same standard COVID safety plan, which has been released as part of phase 2. But yeah, it's, you know, nothing has come out that's industry specific so far that we've seen.
Yeah. Okay. So what's the road back from restrictions look like for you? So you've started online bookings now. You've got an expert, so obviously the COVID safety plan will need to be put in place.
Yep.
Are you hoping that it's just literally going to be full steam ahead? I mean, I guess that's hard to tell if you're going to need extra time between appointments and things like that, isn't it?
Yeah, so at this stage, we're going to proceed with caution because I would never forgive myself if something was to happen here in the shop. So, you know, like an outbreak or something like that. So we need to make sure with our duty of care that we're doing everything possible to minimise risk and contact. So as part of our business plan moving forward, we are, as you know, we're a small salon anyway. We generally only operate with 1 to 2 technicians on at any given time. We're going to go back to a single technician at any given time. So each client will have exclusive use of the salon. So it's only going to be 1 client at a time. We're going to put buffer times in between each appointments to allow for a really thorough clean and disinfect of every surface. Sanitizers everywhere. There's like bottles on every table. And yeah, things like maintaining our like single-use cups and things like that we kind of introduced at the start of COVID, not having a shared water jug at the reception anymore, all those little things that just reduces contact. And also by having those buffer times, we reduce the contact with clients coming in and out. So we have a 15-minute buffer. We make sure our clients don't come early. You know, there's no contact between clients. All of those little things that is just going to help make our clients safer while they're here.
Yeah. But I mean, that still says to me that's going to have an economic impact to your business, doesn't it? You know, because you're not able to operate at the same level as before. You're not able to have, scheduled clients with the same level of frequency that you could. So the road, so this, it's all well and good to go, well, we'll be back and we'll be open, but it's not in the same way, at the same capacity. There will still be an economic impact.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing, isn't it? So it's going to be really a while. We don't know how long before people get back to an earning capacity that's commensurate with what it was prior to COVID-19.
Yeah. I have no idea when, and it's true, like, at the moment we're allowing a 15-minute buffer between each appointment. Well, like 3 buffers, that's 1 appointment. So that's, 1 appointment that we're down for the day with each 3 buffers. So yeah, there will be definitely reduced capacity. But it's just, adapting to the environment. Like, this is what it is. We have to navigate it differently. I have no idea if or when it'll ever get back to normal, It's a tricky one, and we just have to navigate it best we can. But yeah, definitely it's going to be a drop in turnover for us.
Yeah. Well, let's try and find a positive note. Have you managed to find any silver linings in this pandemic and the last few months?
I don't know. It's, what, I just feel like time is standing still right now and has been for the last few months. I'm just, I'm still in March and I don't know where the last few months have gone. So, I guess, we're just focusing on, we're going to do a little bit of a business revamp when we reopen as well. We've kind of used this time to look at, how do we want to progress with the business moving forward, not just with the COVID changes, but with us as a business model. And this is a good time for us to maybe revamp a little bit. We've shuffled some things around in the salon and we've been here kind of, working away. I don't know if I'd call anything a silver lining right now, but
Yeah,
But,
no, I get it. Yeah, I
yeah.
understand. Yeah, Molly's still with you though, isn't she? She's still going.
She's still kicking on. She's over there sleeping on the pedicure chair at the moment.
Yeah, Molly is the cat, by the way, everybody. So Molly's got some health issues. And when I met Molly 12 months ago, well, how long have you had Molly now?
We've had Molly well over 18 months. Yeah. Close to 2 years now.
Yeah, but when Kenjai first got Molly, she was a rescue cat. She was in a really bad way. She's got lots of health issues, and the vets had thought she wouldn't really last more than a few weeks. And here she is, you know, still kicking on.
I know. Every time she goes to the vet, they're like amazed that she's still kicking and still happy. But she's like, yeah, she's still the happiest cat. She's still doing all the cat things. She's running around doing zoomies, and you know.
Yeah.
She's still she's the happiest little thing. But yeah, every time we go to the vet, you know, he tells me, oh, any day now.
Well, it would be nice to see you and Molly, Kenjai, hopefully very, very soon. Before we sign off, is there anything else that I haven't covered that you want to talk about or you want to say? Or
no, I think it's all good.
Yeah, I mean, well, look, I mean, it's you're an inspiration in terms of just your ability to kind of stay focused and positive and on the solutions despite everything that's happened and the impact that it's had for you and the family. So,
thank you.
Congrats, Kenjai, and we look forward to seeing you very soon. And having that post first birthday celebration.
I know we're going to have to do something a little bit of a late. First birthday / happy reopening.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks for your time today, Kenjai.
Thank you so much, Nat. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. See ya.
See ya.